This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, New York. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here Sunday morning. We have Congresswoman Nicole Mayotakis, Paul Zuber from the New York State Merchants Association, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, and she believes in women's issues. Governor David Paterson, Steve Cates, what's going on Mars and the moon. Senator George Borrello is going to talk about that budget in Albany and what he's worried about. Suzanne Miller on residential real estate and the new budget. Harley Lippman, today is the Israeli Day Parade. Joseph Malkani, and he's going in the gold business. Let's hear about it. John Terrett and what's going on with the economy. And let's start off with Michael Stoller and the Real Estate Report.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. Midtown South rezoning. What's happening in Midtown South? A lot of things are happening. And I have a person who's a specialist on Midtown South. I have Howard Raber, who is a director at Ariel Property Advisors. Thanks for being here.
Hi, happy to join. Very excited.
So tell me what's going on in Midtown South.
What's not going on? There's a lot happening. The rezoning there, where you're taking the M zones, and the city is now allowing for the residential overlays, and you change that to a C zone for mixed-use buildings, allowing now to take these old garment center type loft construction buildings and making them into something different and bringing a little new character to the area.
Mostly residential?
There'll be residential buildings, mixed use, so you'll have retail on the ground, and then you will have residential up top for rental properties.
Now, are you getting additional zoning rights?
You are. You're getting an FAR bump. So if you're looking at your floor area ratio of, you can go up to an 18 or a 21.
What does that mean?
Sure. So if you're looking at your larger buildings, and if you're saying I have a 50,000 square foot building, and then if I'm going to develop something new, they're going to say, you know what, because you're building to this residential with affordable housing components, you're going to get an extra percentage on top of that 50,000. So it could be another 20%, depending on your block and your zoning for that area. So now you're saying, wow, I can actually go to 75,000 square feet, depending on what this property is.
So do you have to knock down the property?
So it depends on what you want to do. The 467M program is what the city brought in, is allowing for an office to resi conversion. So you're going to see buildings that were from light manufacturing use, and if the floor plate is right, you convert that building to residential without having to take the building down and work within the confines of that existing building. Or if you find the building is not suitable for conversion and it's a good lot size for development, it's efficient with your width and everything else that goes with it, you can take the building down and do new construction at that higher FAR count, floor area ratio, and you would have, again, also that affordable components that go with it per the city of yes.
Now, with regard to this MX program, it covers the properties from 23rd to 40th Street.
Correct.
Talk to me about that.
What's happened historically is that the Garment District, it's Penn Station area, it's these four quadrants kind of ranging from that area and those locations. For a while, going back even to Mayor Bloomberg, they were trying to figure out a way to revitalize the neighborhood as the need for the theater district type of manufacturing, of costumes and things of that nature, there wasn't a need for it anymore. And you had to find a way to repurpose these older buildings. And so at the time, there was a pushback on residential, but they allowed for hotels. And then, as we all know, there's a little surplus of a hotel development. And then there's still a pushback for residential. Finally, there's been that negotiations, and that's why you look at these quadrants. Some areas still have to keep that light manufacturing zoning. That's part of the negotiations.
Specifically, which areas?
You're looking on 8th Avenue in the 40s, like along the Port Authority area. Certain areas over there, they've kind of kept that requirement for keeping it as a light M, an M1 type of zoning. But you still have a number of these from 5th Avenue to 8th Avenue that are going to be this new C zone type of MX zoning.
So let's talk about specifically some of the buildings that are being converted.
So one of the buildings that our capital services team arranged for the financing, 29 West 35th Street, And you're talking about a building that was an office building, 50 feet wide, and it was sold for about $320 a foot. They're going to be converting the building to 107 residential units. And I think, that's going to be...
All one bedrooms?
Generally, yes. Large one bedrooms. And the test case there is going to be, if they're successful, which I think a lot of people are believing that it's going to be successful based on the correct floor plate and cost and everything that goes into it, that it's going to spur on, I think, the domino effect for other projects.
Which other projects do you see?
It's a good question because I think it's going to be a block-by-block analysis. Investors and developers are looking at each building, and it's tough to pinpoint a building because you have to actually understand where are the columns and what is the brick made of and that makes it conducive. It just might be better to take it down. I think what's going to be interesting is not so much the bigger buildings. It's going to be like on 36th Street on the other side of 35th. You have a lot of these smaller 25-footers that can never do anything. But now all of a sudden you're giving the opportunity to say, listen, if you have 3 lots together, I all of a sudden have a new 75-foot wide development site that I didn't have last year.
Now, what tax advantages is the developer getting?
So you're getting on the 467M, if you did the office to conversion, to resi conversion, you are getting an abatement of about, I think it's like 60% of the taxes for about 30 plus years, depending on when you get it in. And then it goes down by your deadlines. It could be 25 years, depending on when you get those deadlines in. But you are going to get, if you do the affordable component with the City of Yes and everything else goes, any other program, you will get a tax benefit very similar to the 45X program, where you're doing that type of affordability, and you are getting those tax breaks.
Specifically, what are the tax breaks? Over a period of time?
Yes, it would be, I believe, about 25 years, 30 years, depending on which program you're following in.
In general, it looks like the outlook is good. I'm very happy that Howard has joined me today, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
Well, it's going to be a great day today. It's the Israeli Day Parade. And with me is a good friend of mine, Harley Lipman, and he was the Grand Marshal for like 4 years in a row. He was chairman for many, many years. Well, Harley Lipman, what is going on with the Israeli Day Parade today? And are you marching? What are you doing?
I am marching. I have a float with injured Israeli soldiers. So I want them to get the gratitude and the recognition of the people of New York City. And we're excited. This is an amazing day. This is the one time in the year worldwide where so many people are standing behind Israel, not only American Jews. It's not a political event, but we have people of all faiths and religions, Catholics, Protestants, we have blacks, Puerto Ricans, we even have peace-oriented Muslims. So everybody's welcome to march with us to support a Jewish democratic state, Israel.
I heard Jessica Tisch, and they have enough people to make sure everything's safe. And what can you tell the American people that want to come watch the parade?
Yes, it's going to be safe. In fact, Jessica Tisch made a commitment to put on more security than any Israeli parade has ever had previously, and there's always been extensive security. So I'm not worried about any incidents this year.
Is there any particular theme this year? You said that there is no Grand Marshal this year?
Yeah, there is no Grand Marshal, but the theme is pride with Israel. It's we're united, that we're dealing in a world of unparalleled anti-Semitism. So all the more that we stay united and take comfort with the support of each other. Not since 1930s with Nazi Germany have we experienced anti-Semitism at this level. And so we're saying that we're strong, we're standing tall, and we're showing our pride as American Jews and supporters of Israel.
And you also run a big tech company. You're the CEO and founder of Genesis 10?
Yes, so we're a company that provides talent, people who utilize AI to help companies get to wherever they need to go, cheaper, quicker, better, by leveraging AI technology through staffing.
Well, I'll be waving at you and your float, and God bless you, God bless America, God bless Israel, one of America's greatest allies.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless America, and God bless you too.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Well, like every Sunday, Governor David Paterson is with us, common sense Democrat, and governor of the state of New York. Well, there's a new budget in Albany. Any gut feeling?
Well, I think that the budget, they got into a situation where everybody got something that they wanted, and in the end, they spent $268 billion in order to pass it. And I'm not really sure. I mean, I haven't read through everything that's gone on, but it does seem to me that there was an increase on taxes for people who are considered to have a lot of wealth and pulling money from programs that the state usually sponsors, along with people who do also have wealth. And I just get the feeling that they needed to find a place to land, and they found it. But I can't say. I think time will bear out how effective this budget was.
Raising taxes, I can understand that. But my concern is for New York City, New York State, that we don't chase any more people away.
Well, we're chasing people away, that's for sure. Ken Griffin is being chased away. He's changed his plan. He's going to do his development in Miami. And the other gentleman, whose name I'm not remembering, he's moving to Argentina because he's afraid of the turbulence in the United States and, and the fighting and that kind of thing. And by the way, on that subject, John, every day now we're reading about a fight at kindergarten graduations, a fight at Little League parks. There's a rising level of tension, an increased climate of fear. And I can't put my finger on what is driving people to become violent and to become so angry that they lose their orientation, and making it harder and harder on law enforcement that, usually Saturday and Sunday morning, that's when kids are playing Little League and people going to church. Now you have to have the police around in case, there's a conflict and a brawl. There was a brawl at a soccer game last night.
That kind of conflict has to stop. We have 8.5 million people in New York City, 19.5 in New York State, people that are not meant to live within civilized people. Enough is enough, giving them second chances. I don't mind second chances. I don't mind third chances. I don't mind fourth chances, but not 150 chances.
Exactly. And, even from leadership, I was very disappointed in a very good friend of mine, and he's a friend of yours, former Mayor Eric Adams. The idea of starting a charter revision commission on his last day and then thinking it would sustain and block Mamdani from doing the same thing. When you leave office, you're out. On January 1st, 2011, I was out. I didn't do anything on New Year's Eve to try to extend my authority or something like that, appoint all these people to commissions. They all came to the first couple of meetings. And Mayor Mamdani, because he is the mayor and has the authority, he shut the commission down. And whatever you think about him, he did have a right to put a commission together with his people, which he's now doing. And I just don't understand this kind of manipulation. And it's not just the former mayor. He actually, I thought, did as good a job as he could under the circumstances. But it's just this idea that you're just trying to outsmart people and take things from people. There was no need to do that. And now I understand the people that Adams appointed are suing. They are wasting their money. They won't be in court for 5 minutes. Mamdani won this one, and he deserved it.
Anything else you want to tell the all New Yorkers and all Americans on the Sunday morning?
I think, based on what we just talked about, there's got to be some kind of call for civility. And I read on Friday that Martin Luther King III, that was the son of Martin Luther King Jr., was saying that this violence and this anger, right where we started in this conversation, he's saying this is not what his father risked his life and lost his life for. We've got to learn how to get together, and we have to learn how to respect each other. And we're moving further away from it. So I hope by next Sunday, John, that I can come on and be a lot more positive than I'm being today.
Well, God bless you. God bless America. And we'll talk again real soon. Thank you so much.
Take care, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
And with us today is Congresswoman Nicole Malyotakis, the only Republican congressperson in the 5 boroughs in New York City. And Nicole, the sun is shining. What do you think?
Well, the sun is shining, John, but unfortunately we saw Albany moving forward with a state budget that we believe is big and bloated and absolutely unaffordable to the taxpayers of this state. $265 billion, which is absolutely insane, is more than double what the state of Florida spends, and the state of Florida has millions of more residents.
Congresswoman, I know you long enough before you were Congresswoman. Nicole, the key item is all of Florida for 24 million people is $119 billion. New York City alone for 8.5 million people is $130 billion. New York State, besides New York City, is $269 billion. And one of the big problems when I talked to people yesterday was the Medicaid or Medicare, which one, went to $125 billion, and Florida is only like $33 billion.
That's the Medicaid program,
The
John.
Medicaid program. And so somebody has to find out, because business people are leaving New York and people are worried about New York.
Yeah, look, when I was in the state legislature, John, the budget was around $125 billion, $150 billion. So in essence, it's gone up $100 billion, nearly double in the last decade. It's very disturbing, and Medicaid is the major driver to this, because when the state decided to do the Medicaid expansion program, that really drove up the cost, because there's a lot of fraud in that program. And this is exactly what we talk about in Washington, right? You have the president, Republican Congress. We've exposed it in my committee, House Ways and Means, the hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud throughout the country. And the main states that they have targeted, it's New York, Minnesota, California, and they're even going after Florida. But look, the thing is that when you crack down on this fraud, you ensure that you're not only protecting the taxpayer money, but you're making sure that the money's actually going for their intended purpose. The disabled, the most vulnerable, the people who truly need it, our senior citizens. That's what the program was intended for. And you have a bunch of fraudsters who we've exposed in our committee time and again. We're seeing the Department of Justice take action and prosecute those people. So we're seeing the Trump administration take this seriously, and it's so critical, because the program will go bankrupt if we don't go after the fraudsters who are trying to fleece the taxpayers of this country and our state.
I'm worried, and you were the only Republican Congresswoman that's speaking out, and they tried to destroy you too.
Well, look, John, every time I've run for re-election, this is my third re-election, they've tried to change my district map in an illegal way to tilt the scale and steal the seat and silence the voice of the people of Staten Island and Brooklyn. We defeated them once again in court this year, and we've preserved our map, so we do have a fair seat. Now, people should remember, by the way, that this seat was lost in 2018 to a Democrat in the last Trump midterm, and that's why it is so important that we work hard to preserve this district in the election. And I think we'll do very well with the support of New Yorkers, and we've delivered on the things that we've said we were going to do, John. We said we were going to secure the border. We said we were going to deport the criminals. We said we were going to rein in waste, fraud, and abuse to protect our taxpayers. We are delivering on
common
those things,
sense,
including the tax cuts that we passed this year.
Nicole, we want common sense to prevail for all New Yorkers, and right now it's not happening.
That's right. And you know who I met with this week, John, who I think is a really somebody with common sense. And yes, we are of different parties. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. I went to go see her today. As you know, I'm a big backer of the Blue. I've delivered millions of dollars for our NYPD, for equipment, for the K-9 unit, for vehicles, and other things. And, I met with her, and she's doing a great job. Despite the politics of our mayor, despite the stupid laws being passed in Albany, she's managed to not just, and they're hiring more cops, which is critical. Staten Island's going to get more police officers as a result. Sometimes they've raided my district and taken cops from my district to move them to other parts of Brooklyn. That's not going to happen this year. That's great news. They really cracked down not only on violent crimes like murder, but they've cracked down on car thefts. I was proud to deliver some money a couple of years ago for license plate readers to track down stolen vehicles, and that has proven to have been a success in driving down.
I contributed to the New York Police Foundation for that.
Well, John, you're a big supporter of the police. I mean, I know how much work you do with our Police Athletic League, and more importantly, you use the airwaves to support common sense policies. And, you know, our men and women, they need elected officials to support them. They need the public to support them because, unfortunately, there are so many out there who demonize our police. And here comes our governor, by the way, passing legislation to further tie the hands of
That's
police.
going to take additional thoughts to talk about. But thank you for calling in this Sunday morning. And may the sun shine for New York. And we love America. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. God bless America.
Carolyn Maloney was with us. She's the congresswoman on the East Side forever. And Congresswoman Maloney, tell us, you were pro-women, having a women's museum, and they were doing a car ride all over the country. Tell us what the status of that is.
Okay, we sponsored, my not-for-profit ERA now sponsored a Driving the Vote for Equality tour across America, which built on what the suffragists did in 1916. They got a Saxon yellow car, the Golden Flyer. They went across America for the right to vote. They came back. They had coalitions they built all across the country working for it, and it soon passed. But when they went, the right to vote was stalled. Now the Equal Rights Amendment is stalled. So we did the same journey, the exact same journey. We went to 25 states, covered 10,700 miles, driving for equality. They drove for the vote. We're driving for the vote for the ERA. And we're hoping that when we get to the midterms, we will elect a pro-ERA Congress, people that will support putting women in the Constitution. One of the reasons it's so important, John, is that I never thought that my daughters would have less rights than what I have. But when they rolled back Roe v. Wade, a woman's right to choose, it showed you that if they can roll back a woman's right to choose, they can roll back any of our other hard-earned rights for equality, employment, and education.
I believe, Carolyn Maloney, you know me forever and ever and ever. I believe in women's rights. I believe in men's rights.
I know. That's why
and
I
the
love
one
you.
thing I don't believe in, I don't believe in men playing in women's sports, and I don't believe in men going into women's bathrooms.
Well, I agree with you in that. But let's talk about the right to vote.
The right to vote, everybody should have the right to vote 110%.
And the right for equality of treatment. And the only way to protect women from these rollbacks is to have women placed in the Constitution.
And I've talked to a lot of
men.
I've talked to a lot of men, I've talked to a lot of women, I've talked to a lot of Republican politicians, independent politicians, and Democratic politicians. I understand it's ready to go, and the only argument right now in the Democratic Party is they want to have 6 genders to pass the law. I'm not sure that 90% or 80% of the people want that.
Well, that is the argument they have with the Women's Museum right now at the Equal Rights Amendment. I don't think there's any argument like
pro-equal
that.
rights. I am pro-equal rights.
Men are already equally treated in the Constitution. We just want women to get the same.
I agree with you 110%.
And we have a way of achieving it.
And I believe in having a women's museum, too.
I do, too.
Okay, so let's straighten it out.
Your listeners about the sign letter4era.org. It's a national petition developed by students at Hunter College at Roosevelt House of Public Policy, where you gave a brilliant speech.
Tell us that again, that email.
The students have started a national petition drive in support of the Equal Rights Amendment. We have 166,000 signatures from every congressional district and every state. And we have a goal of 1 million by the November elections. And you go to the Internet to sign, SIGN, letter4era.org. It's a national petition, and if people would sign it, it would be great that they can be part of the effort.
I am pro for 100%. I told you what I'm not pro, and I will look at it and I will sign it myself as long as it's equal rights for men and women.
That's what it is.
Thank you so much, Carolyn Maloney. And you should have still been Congresswoman on the East Side. And I'm glad your daughter is doing a great job, that she won in the, what is it, the City Council or the Assembly?
She's in the city council.
That is wonderful
She's
news.
in the city council, and she hosted us at City Hall yesterday. And I thank you for welcoming us on your radio station.
Always, always. I welcome Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and you. I love for 30 years, so I welcome you too.
Okay.
Thank
great.
you so much.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. I understand Albany has passed a bill. And with us today is Senator George Borrello from Chautauqua County. And Senator Borrello, what does the bill say?
Well, John, we have a $268 billion budget, another record-breaking budget here in New York State. And it passed, of course, in the middle of the night like it always does. And without knowing everything that's in this budget, I can tell you one thing. Taxes are going up, and the services to the people of New York State aren't going to get any better as a result. And that's really the problem here. You know, if spending more money made New York more affordable, then we should be the most affordable state in the nation. But we are not. And also, Medicaid, another huge problem. It continues to grow. It's up 89%, which is an unbelievable number. On top of that, we still have fraud, waste, and abuse that's going unchecked. My Republican colleagues and I, we introduced an amendment to call for an independent audit of the entire state budget, but Medicaid in particular, where we see this continued waste, fraud, and abuse that's been pointed out by the state comptroller, a fellow Democrat, by the way, of the party in charge. We've seen it pointed out by good government groups like the Empire Center. And yet, every single Democrat in the New York State Senate voted no for an independent audit. Yet we know that there are tens of billions of dollars in that program. It is now almost half of New York State's budget. $125 billion with a B is the price tag for this upcoming year for Medicaid. And no one wants to find out where the waste, fraud, and abuse is. And that is probably the most egregious thing, in my opinion.
I can't believe this is happening in our state. Where's the checks and balances, Senator?
Well, that's the problem. When you have one party ruling everything, there are no checks and balances. You know, and this is what we've seen. These things get shoved through here in New York State. And again, my Democrat colleagues and Governor Hochul, they've never met a tax they didn't like. As you know, we have this new pied-à-terre tax, which is going to hit New York City now, which is going to raise property taxes for people starting as little as an assessed value of $1 million. That's not a wealthy person, okay? That's not the one percenters. This is someone who maybe has a home in New York City and also has another residence somewhere else. Maybe they go back and forth for work, and because it's not their primary residence, they could be paying tens of thousands of dollars of additional property taxes every year because of this pied-à-terre tax. And for what? To fund the socialist mayor's agenda. He's not learned to tighten his belt. He's not done anything really to address the fiscal crisis. Instead, we're just going to tax more and get more bailouts from the state taxpayers.
Now, it only affects the people in New York City, the 5 boroughs, or it affects the whole state?
It's for properties in the 5 boroughs that will see this pied-à-terre tax. And these could be people that live in New York State. There are other places that have tried similar things where they tax out-of-state residents, people that don't live here and pay taxes. But if your primary residence is on Long Island or, in Westchester County or Buffalo or wherever it might be, and you also happen to own a property, condo, an apartment, a home in the 5 boroughs that is not your primary residence, you're going to pay this pied-à-terre tax. And as I said, on a condo, a dwelling like that, on values as little as $1 million. And I know New York City, $1 million doesn't buy you much. So this is going to impact a lot of people.
All I could say is, wow. Anything else, any other items in there that really annoyed you?
Well, I will say there's some good things. We were able to get some victories on the terrible climate agenda that has been costing New Yorkers so much. A 5-year delay in the electric school bus mandate, which has just caused an unbelievable amount of problems and consternation with our school districts. They've rolled back some of the requirements of the Climate Leadership Act, which is going to require all electrification and starting in the next few years. It was going to make it impossible and too expensive, quite frankly, for people to be able to maintain reliable forms of energy like natural gas. So we are declaring victory in that sense. But again, these are things that are happening in an election year when Governor Hochul and her Democrat colleagues are trying to get reelected no matter how much harm they have done to our economy and our quality of life and public safety. And so as a result, once the election's over, if they're still in power, this is basically all just written on an Etch-a-Sketch, folks. They can shake up that Etch-a-Sketch and start over again and reinstate all of those harmful mandates and taxes. So I would tell you, be smart. The only real solution here is a change in leadership. We need responsible, common-sense leadership in Albany, and we need to restore balance to our state government. And that means voting differently than you did before.
Senator Borrello, I wish you made me feel better, but you don't. And let's see how things sort themselves out, and thank you for coming on this Sunday morning.
Thank you very much, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
What the heck is going on in Albany? Well, maybe Paul Zuber can give us an answer. And Paul Zuber is the Executive Vice President of the Visitors Council of New York State. Well, Paul Zuber, give us the pulse of the situation. What is going on?
Well, John, they finally have a budget. They finally agreed to a budget here in New York State. Like most budgets, there's some good with the budget and there's some bad with the budget. They did make some changes to the climate law that I think will be helpful to businesses and consumers. They made some changes to environmental review procedures that will kind of expedite some housing and some development, make it quicker and easier. They did some stuff on auto insurance that will lower insurance rates, and the governor decided that she was not going to raise taxes on individuals and corporations. But, there is still some issues, right? So we just passed a $268 billion budget, which is the biggest budget in New York State history. And I went back and looked. In 2020, New York's budget was $177 billion. In 2010, it was only $135 billion. So how we've all of a sudden blown up our budget by $100 billion in less than a decade is beyond me. And I think we have to be ready because we're headed for trouble if we keep doing that. And in the budget, New York City got about $2.4 billion. $780 million of it is reoccurring money, but there's no accountability for the money. So we're not in the budget. No one's holding New York City accountable. So in all likelihood, you're probably going to see the same situation that happened this year where New York City is going to come back and say, I need more money. I need you to raise more taxes. I need you to do this because we can't keep operating at this level. So, I always say one of the big problems in New York State is we take 2 steps forward with auto insurance reform and fixing the climate law, but then we take 2 steps back because we do things that actually increase costs on consumers. And lastly, I'll say we're coming to the end of the legislative session in here in New York, and I think it's going to be even worse then because what happens is these bills come out in the middle of the night. Nobody knows why they've been put on the floor to vote, why they haven't. And in often cases, no one ever puts down a true accounting of how much that particular piece of legislation is going to cost New Yorkers. So we wake up months from now and we realize, oh, my God, we passed this bill and we said it was going to be no cost to New Yorkers, but it ends up costing New Yorkers more money. The climate law is a perfect example. When Cuomo passed that several years ago, if you look at the bill, it said fiscal impact to be determined. Well, we found out like almost 10 years later that the fiscal impact was huge. And that's the problem. New York State, we're always going to be in trouble. We're always going to be wondering why people are leaving the state, why people want to open up businesses in Texas and North Carolina and Florida. The way we do things is kind of backwards, right? Like there's no business that you know of that would not understand the costs of, buying a particular product or putting something out to market and just go by the seat of their pants. And I think often in Albany, we just go by the seat of our pants.
Paul, you're in Albany mostly, and you are very familiar with upstate. I live in downstate. I live in the city, and I've never seen so many empty stores, not even in the 70s or the 80s, as I see now. This congestion pricing really hurt a lot of businesses.
To the point of what happens at the end of session, nobody ever looks at the domino effect of these things that they do. So to your example, John, you do congestion pricing. No one says to themselves, okay, we're going to increase, costs for people going into Midtown Manhattan. But everybody doesn't think to themselves, well, all these trucks that come in and are bringing goods to a restaurant, they're going to actually have to pay more money, right? So who's going to pay that? The trucking company's not going to eat that cost. He's going to pass it on to the retailer, who then is going to pass it on to the consumer. And we don't look at these things. So when you talk about opening these storefronts that are open in New York, we constantly pass these laws in New York that deal with workers' compensation, that deals with things that, the legislators think are so wonderful and we're going to protect everybody. But in the end, they place the burden on the small business owner, and then the small business owner has no other choice but to pass it on. And when they can't pass it on anymore, they end up closing shop. And it's become so expensive to operate, particularly in New York City, that a lot of people are just throwing up their hands and saying, why? And people have to realize, and our legislators have to realize, that there are impacts to the bills that you pass. You need to look past the initial goals of a piece of legislation. You have to look at what happens afterwards. And a lot of that is not happening in Albany, and a lot of it's not happening at the city council level as well.
Well, Paul Zuber, let's keep our eyes open and let's see what we come up with. And how do the British say it, how things are going to sort themselves out next week?
Yeah, well, I hope they sort themselves out well, but Albany, it probably isn't. But hopefully it will, John. Hopefully it will.
Thank you, Paul Zuber, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
All right. Thank you, John.
Well, there's a new budget in Albany. The real estate industry is not 100% happy with what's going on. And one of our experts in residential homes is Suzanne Miller, founder and president of Empire State Properties. Well, Suzanne Miller, what's the pulse of the situation? What is this going to mean to New York City real estate? That's because this is only a tax against New York City real estate, right?
Well, for so far, to me, it's a cash grab. It's a sugar rush to get quick money for New York. John, it's very concerning. The city's trying to raise $500 million. It's going to affect about 15 million people. Anyone with a second home that's vacant. So if your nanny, grandma, child, or relative lives there, it won't affect you. But let's say you have a home in Paris, Florida, and New York, and you want to use it 3 days a week. Well, now you're going to be affected. So it's going in two different phases. I've studied this hard, and it's very bad. For the next 2 years, and it starts this July. It's in two different phases, 2026 and 2027. $1 to $3 million apartments are going to be taxed at 4% annually. So let's go through the math.
Is there a sunset clause or it's forever?
It resets. Let me go through it with you. So for the first 2 years, starting this July, any property $1 to $3 million gets taxed at 4%. So if you're $1.1 million, it's still 4%. But let's just take a $2 million apartment. At 4%, we're talking about $40,000 a year. So now, for $3 to $5 million apartments, it goes.
And that's on top. That's on top of real estate taxes.
Yeah.
So they're taxing the taxes.
You're going to fall off your chair, right?
Yes.
$3 to $5 million apartments, it goes to 5.2%, and $5 million up, it goes to 6.5%. So in a $5 million apartment, remember, you don't get taxed on the first $1 million. At 6.5%, your tax is going to be $260,000 annually. Phase two, now they're going to, in 2028...
So they punish people that want to spend money in New York.
Right. Wait, let me just finish. In phase two, which is going to be 2028 to 2029, they're going to assess you on what the comparables are in your building. So now it comes down because the assessed value will go up. So right now they're basing the tax, it's very complicated, they're basing the tax on whatever the rent should be. In 2028, it kicks back to what the comparables should be on a sale. So on a $5 million to $15 million apartment, it goes to 0.8. $15 million to 25, it goes to 1.05, and 25 or greater, it goes to 1.3. But that is going to be way higher because, for example, like Ken Griffin, I hate that we keep using him, but his $238 million apartment was only assessed then at $15 million. Now it's going to be assessed at the $238 million.
I'm sure the real estate industry is going to fight this because this doesn't seem
passed.
fair.
It's passed, John.
Suzanne Miller, the only thing I could say is let's see how things are sorting themselves out. But it doesn't look good, and I'll admit that to you, and let's keep talking about it.
Any questions? I'm here. Thanks, John.
You. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Dr. Sky, otherwise known as Steve Cates. So many things are going on up there, whether it's the moon, Mars, there's always something going on. And Steve Cates, what do you have to say this Sunday morning?
Well, good morning. Happy Sunday to you and the listeners, John. We got a couple of great stories. One we begin with in space. We've all heard of the term black holes. And we know that nothing, at least from our vantage point, can escape the power of a black hole. Electromagnetism, everything, heat, light. Where does it go? Where does it come from? But the basic view, John, of black holes is we originally thought there was only one type, and that it was formed after a massive star collapse and created this big area of suction in space, if you want to call it. But now astronomers and cosmologists, the people who study the creation of the universe, say that there's these things, John, called primordial black holes from the creation of the universe. So in other words, some of these may have been formed when the universe formed 13.5 billion years ago. And here's the weird part, John. They're floating free in the universe, and some of them could be as small as the Earth. And this coming from a discovery of something even more bizarre, the subject of gravitational waves. What's that? How space-time can be warped. So if you have an explosion of some type in space, keeping it simple, the ripples of gravity, and they're noticing something within those ripples may be there to interfere with the stream of those ripples. And they could be, John, a plethora of these miniature black holes. Imagine that. Who knows? Floating out in the deep universe. Amazing.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I mean, and the truth is, I'm not sure we really know the truth anyway. I heard this week that the Mars landers are doing well still up there, and they're finding some things that NASA doesn't want to disclose. Have you heard about that?
John, I've heard a little bit about it, but before I comment on it, I want to make sure that I do a deep dive into this. We're hearing a lot of things, and all centered around the so-called disclosure information. When we'll ever be told about the UAPs and UFOs. But, John, my story next is about Mars, and I think you and the audience will love it. The planet Mars, John, is about 4,200 miles in diameter. What's that mean? It's 2 times the diameter of our Earth's moon. But there's a feature that stands out on Mars that's most incredible. It's the most massive volcano in the solar system. It's known as Nix Olympia, Olympic snow, Mount Olympus. John, it's 370 miles in diameter. That's about the size of the state of Arizona or the nation of France. And here's the most intriguing part. This big giant volcano is 72,000 feet above the surface of Mars. And it formed millions of years ago. It was an active volcano.
Is that double Mount Everest?
Absolutely. And then some, which is incredible. So if you take Mount Everest, let's say we rounded it, even though it's not 30,000 feet, 29 and change. It's double that, 30 and 30, 60. We're talking 72,000 feet, John. So this particular planet, the mysteries still continue. And just before talking about these landers on Mars, they're searching for evidence of life. They may have come across some stuff that we haven't been told about. It's all part of the course with the whole thing with UAPs. When will we ever be told the truth? But, John, that puts it in perspective. That makes Mars the center of so many mysteries as we talk about here. But then we end off, John, with the mystery of the week. And this is something that you brought to my attention. And summarizing it for the audience, a large 220-pound meteor known as the Murchison meteorite. This object may be, and at least we know from science, having the oldest material ever found on Earth. Inside these little grains of stardust or material are 7 billion years old. John, the Earth wasn't formed, at least we think. We don't have an absolute, 4.5 billion years ago. So what's going on with this is, where did this material come from when the universe was, 13.7 billion years in formation? That's how old it is. But these are 7 billion years old. There's a theory, John, and we can't prove it, that life may have originated on the Earth in a process called panspermia. Sounds kind of technical. What is it? That comets and asteroids may have seeded the universe with the earliest forms of life. And that goes to beg the question, if that happened, where else did it seed life? And that's the big quest, right, John, to understand or find out the truth of what lies out in the universe. Are we alone? Probably not. And that's fascinating.
I'm sure we're not alone, and I am sure there's more life out there than meets the eye. And I told you one time what the Archbishop told me was that the fact is, why do you think our Creator only left his seeds on just one planet?
So well said, John. And concluding, here's something for everybody to take a look at with their own eyes. Look into the sky to the northwest after sunset. The two brightest objects you'll see higher up into the northwest are both Venus, the lowest and brightest, and then just to the upper left of it is Jupiter. And by the first week, John, and it's maybe around the 9th of June, these two objects are going to form a magnificent conjunction about the diameter of a full moon in the sky, the great mysteries of what conjunctions meant, like the, quote, Star of Bethlehem and other things connected to the heavens. Something to see, John, as we look into the skies, open up our minds about mysteries, and certainly seek answers to what's out there in the great cosmos.
Steve Cates, thank you for your wisdom. And I listen to you every Saturday and Sunday on WABC in New York, midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning. And I really enjoy those discussions, and talk to you again real soon.
Well, thank you, John, for the opportunity, and everybody have a most wonderful Sunday morning. Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
What's going on with gold? What's going on with silver? With us today is a good friend. His name is Joseph Marconi. I guess he's in construction businesses and real estate businesses and many other businesses. And all of a sudden, he calls me. He says, well, I'm going to be in the gold business. Well, Joseph Marconi, tell me, why do you want to go into the gold business?
I've worn many hats. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be with you, to share a few thoughts. Maybe just a quick before we get started. I looked at your book and I noticed some similarities. One, it says that when you came here, you grew up to learn English, and I came from Australia. And one of the first things I needed to do was to try to learn English, but I was...
Well, you guys in Australia are still learning a little bit of American English.
Very true. I've certainly learned quite a bit along the way. So I've been in construction. I've done all of these things. But what I realized is that my family and myself, we've worked in construction for generations. And at the end of the day, we come home and we still all struggle to pay our bills and to put food on the table and to do that. And I thought, why is it that generation after generation, am I still struggling? Are we still struggling to pay the bills and to put food on the table? And I wanted to figure that out and to find the answer. And one of the things that I did is I took a step back, not 5 years, but 5,000 years, and I noticed that over the history of every empire, every age that had their own money, that turned into paper and blew away, the only thing that really stuck and stayed was gold and silver. So what I've done is I've established American sovereign bullion basically for the purpose of enabling your everyday American, whether you're the worker, whether you're the self-made executive, is, you know, if I've worked in the construction industry actually doing the work, and then I became the executive that had to make those difficult decisions, you know, balancing, like, you know, what bills do I pay, make sure I make payroll, and charging clients the right amount so they get real value and enough so that I can pay my employees.
So what is gold, today's Sunday, what is gold right now?
Gold's around $45.50.
And it went as high as $5,500, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, gold over the last 50 years has gone no place else but up. Whether it's good time or bad time, I think there's always a reason why you should have a little bit of your portfolio in gold.
For sure. It hedges against it. Like, let's look back at 2000. That's the year my son was born. My first son was born in 2000. In 2000, gold was $375 an ounce. If you spent $100 on groceries, you came home with a couple bag of groceries in the year 2000. Now, that same $100, if you had purchased gold, would be worth over $1,700. It's 17x since the year 2000. It's gone up significantly.
And tell me, you're starting a gold company, and you feel that it's good for the investors and consumers, and you're going to invest your money in this gold too.
Definitely. And, you know, as you mentioned, in the real estate, we started in the real estate business in 2009 and have diversified that same company, which is evolved into American Sovereign Bullion, and we just recently opened up a branch of the company in Boca Raton, Florida. And it's specifically for this purpose. We want to educate people why it is so important to have gold and silver in their portfolios. When the stock market goes down, gold and silver continues to rise. And that's the important thing to remember. We say gold changes, but gold maintains its value. In 1933, you could buy 1 ounce of gold for $20 single. And today, that same ounce of gold will cost you $4,500, around about.
Well,
and
that's,
what happened? Gold's the same, but it's a significant difference.
I have part of my portfolio in gold, and I think it's a great idea. Let's have continued discussions on this. Joseph Marcarney, I always pronounce your last name difficultly, and you just founded the American Sovereign Bullion. Thank you so much for calling in this Sunday morning. I think you're on the right track, and let's talk again real soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
How did the markets do last week? How are we going to do next week? Well, with us today is John Terrett. And John, give us an update.
Good Sunday morning to you, John. Well, last week was dominated by that memorandum of understanding that apparently exists between Washington and Tehran. 60 days it's supposed to last for, and it's supposed to end the war in Iran. Now, nobody knows whether it actually exists or not. Investors took the optimistic view all of last week. The Dow on Thursday was at a record, so was the S&P 500 at 75.63 at the close. And, of course, the markets were flirting with records on Friday as well. Traders overlooking the PCE, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, which came in at 3.8% last week. What a time for Kevin Walsh to take over as the chairman of the Fed. Very unenviable position he's in as a rate cutter. He's not going to be able to cut rates anytime soon. The Fed
you can't say that, John. You know why? If the price of energy goes down, you never know what's going to happen.
You are right about that, but I think even if the war ended tomorrow, it's going to take a while for the price of energy to come back down to where it was.
My opinion, you're wrong. I think it comes down to $60 a barrel within 30 days.
I hope you're right. Well, you're entitled to your opinion, and I do hope you're right. Others on Wall Street are not so sure. The Fed meets next on June the 16th and 17th. Now, company news, Dell Computers. Michael Dell, they wrote him off a couple of years ago. He's come back big time, mainly because of AI data center demand. His stock was up 30% on Friday. The Ford Motor Company up 6% on Friday because people are focusing not on cars, but on their energy storage business. They have a tie-up with a Chinese company on that. And Gap had its worst day on Friday in a year because sales are not so good, including at the companies it owns, like Banana Republic and Old Navy. Now, there was a lot of retail last week. Dollar Tree was up 18% on Thursday, very strong earnings. Kohl's, another company written off a while ago, they spiked 20% on Thursday because the trends are improving. Dick's Sporting Goods, sales rising. The Foot Locker turnaround appears to be going okay, although, to be fair, Dick's stock was down on Thursday. Abercrombie & Fitch and Bath & Body Works, they just show that the consumers are still spending very strongly. And that's happening because those of us who own homes and have stock portfolios are feeling very wealthy at the moment. Other people, it's fair to say, less so. On Friday, the Dow crossed over 51,000 for the first time. And the story of the week for me was the new EV Ferrari out of Italy. Even the transport minister in Rome said, look, this doesn't look like a Ferrari. It's not worthy of the badge. And he went further. He said even the Chinese wouldn't dare to copy this one, which we thought was absolutely hilarious. The crypto story of the week, the commodity authorities have cleared the way for greater risk and greater return when investing in cryptocurrency commodities. And the week ahead, of course, it's a full trading week again this week. And on Friday, we get the jobs report for the month of May. That'll be on June the 5th. John
Terrett, thank you again. And let's catch up again real soon. And I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, I'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend. For what's left of it, thank you.
Thank you for being with us for the Cats Roundtable Local Edition, the #1 show on Sunday mornings in New York. Keep listening to us for the Cats Roundtable National Edition between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So we'll be back to you in a few minutes after the news.